Yeah, but it had disappeared because I had the
So Neil, there's a microphone symbol in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen with the word mute underneath. If you click on it, you get a red line across it, and that means it's muted.
This was working earlier. I've got to set it up so that I've got the PowerPoint, but I can still see the anyway, I can't see anybody now, Phil, but
Is it recording?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Right, shall we make a start?
Yep.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to tonight's seminar. This is the second that we've held for the Coach Road Solar Meadow project. The first one being in February 21, which is now over 2 years ago, which is quite surprising to me that it's taken so long to get to a point now of having some firm proposals to consult people on and discuss with them, and that those are all contained in the current planning application. So for those who don't know me, my name's Phil Barwood. I'm chairman of the Prospects Foundation, and I'm also a board member of Prospects Community Energy, which is the community benefit society that we've set up to carry out this project on the site that Prospects owns at Coach Road. We'll be hearing a bit more from Dave later on about what a community benefit society is, so I'll just leave it at that at the moment. But just a couple of words of housekeeping. As Dave has said, this webinar is being recorded, and Prospects, we hope to put it out on our YouTube channel. Please keep any questions you want to make till the end of each presentation, so that people are not interrupted, but do feel free to put stuff up on the chat if anything occurs to you that you need an answer to straight away. Just type it in. To avoid problems with feedback, please keep your mics on mute if you're not actually speaking. And finally, if there are any outstanding points that we can't deal with tonight, I'll get Gemma to make a note of them, and we'll try and get back to people subsequently if there's something we have to look at before we can answer the question. But we do want to hear what people think in all respects. So as well as myself tonight, we have Dave Green. Those who don't know Dave, Dave works for Share Energy, which is a cooperative that specializes in support for community renewable schemes. And Dave and I have been working together on this for over 2 years now, with the assistance of funding from the Rural Community Energy Fund, which has paid for all the consultancy work that we've had to do. And Dave will be making a presentation after the next speaker, which is Nicholas Whitelaw from a firm of planning consultants called LocoGen, who have been working for us to get together and submit this planning application. So Nicholas will be making a presentation about the detail of the proposals in a moment. A bit of background, first of all, for those who may not be familiar. I don't know whether everybody here tonight took part in the original webinar, or whether there are some new people on Hill Street who aren't familiar with all the background. But just very briefly, I'll just say Prospects is a charity dedicated to support for Community Action for the Environment in Hyndburn. We're a registered charity. We've been around for 25 years, and we have six environmental themes, one of which is renewable energy and energy conservation. A lot of what we do at the moment is about nature conservation, but we do have 6 themes in total. Nature conservation is one of them, but energy is the other. This site we bought about 20 years ago at Coach Road, and there is a previous proposal for the site which we've now abandoned due to viability issues. That was a small green business park. That proposal will not now proceed, but we did obtain planning permission for that. But there were some serious issues about the improvement of the access, which made it virtually impossible to do and make financially viable. We do want, as I say, we do want to hear from people what you have to what you have to think about this project, and it's a consultation process. One thing I would say is that people may feel that you've been kept in the dark somewhat, but the problem has been that it's very difficult to consult people on proposals that you can't show them, if you see what I mean. You know, there has to be something to talk about, and we have, surprisingly, we've only recently got to that stage with this planning application now. So there is now a set of plans which shows the proposal in full detail for people to have a look at and take a view on. Okay, so thanks very much. It's now for Nicholas from Locogen to speak to the proposals.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Phil. We're not just planning consultants, we're renewable energy consultants based in Edinburgh, but with growing very rapidly. And yeah, I think we're taking on 5 or 6 people from the north of England in the last few months. So we could have an office near you at some point. Yes, how do I bring up my presentation?
There's a green, should be a green button at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, so the share screen, okay.
Yeah. And then choose your window.
Okay, right. It would be this one. Okay, yeah, I've not done this before, so, and then I would go to
slideshow beginning, and it should work.
It's I think that at the black bars, like, yeah, you are right. Is that file, Dave?
No, keep going to the right. No.
Yep.
One more.
Share.
No.
Record.
No, it's already recording. So
yes,
just along from file. Is it hidden for you?
That's what I think it is. It's just it's if I can move this bar.
If you move,
yeah, there it is. Right, I've moved it. Slideshow, yes, of course. Right, okay.
And then choose beginning. From beginning on the left-hand side.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay, right. Finally, sorry about that. Apologies. Yeah. So, and I think it's click to the next one. Is it? Right. Yeah. So, yep. This is the site. Here, so this is the site area, which also includes it's a 2-meter wide buffer where the cable would join up to its destination to supply the power. I'll move on to and the blue denotes the owner, the land ownership of the applicant of. Yeah. So, in summary, of the proposed development, it's up to 2 megawatt capacity. we anticipate that construction would take 4 to 6 months. Another thing I should just point out is that Local Gen weren't responsible for the layout drawings. That was Vital Energy, Phil?
Yep.
Yep. Now with modern solar farms, particular ones I've been involved in the last year or so, you're looking at an operational life of 40 years now with the technology and just through regular maintenance and so on, which is cleaning with ionized water. So yeah, but there would be various biodiversity enhancements, which I think Phil will talk about later, or Dave, including the butterfly bank. There would be a wildflower mix. The hedgerows would be restored and expanded in some instances, and the pond and woodland out with the site area would also receive some biodiversity enhancements. Yes, I mean, what was picked up that restricts the use of the land to a degree is the contamination that I think previous reports from 20 years ago found out. I think that may restrict the use for housing. And yes, there would be a 2 meter high fence around the site with CCTV. That would be needed for security and insurance purposes and so on. You're not going to get funding or insurance payouts if the site's not secure. Yeah, just moving on. Minimize that. Yeah, there could be some glint and glare. A glint and glare report was done. There could be some to some of the upper floors on the properties on Hill Street, but I think that's from a bare air earth assessment. The conditions would have to be, optimum. It's unlikely to be a major issue, but it's worth pointing out that the assessment did say that there could be some glint and glare, which is, reflections of the panels. But the panels these days are a darker sort of matted color, so they're designed to absorb light, not reflect light. The landscape and visual impacts are localized, and there would be no impacts to the nearby cultural heritage features such as the lime kilns or the railway viaduct, with screening and so on. The noise impacts again wouldn't be significant in terms of the position of the inverters. The inverters would be located here in the middle of the site. Now the noise that an inverter makes is the same as a domestic fridge, and I have my fridge behind me, and I can't really hear it. You're talking about 40 decibels, and they only make noise whilst they're generating, so they would only make noise at night. Yep. There would also be biodiversity net gains. I think it was between 13 and 75% the net gains in terms of the biodiversity. A construction traffic management plan would no doubt have to be produced in order to regulate and manage the movements along Coach Road. That would be produced if the application was to be passed. It would be a condition that would have to be submitted to the local authority as a condition in all likelihood. Now, in terms of actual representations, you have 21 days usually from the date of the advert in the press. Now, I think that's just come out, though. In reality, most local authorities will, accept that up until the committee date, which I think that this would likely go to committee. Would go to committee, and timescale wise, you're talking between sort of 8 to 13 weeks, I believe, as the sort of the standard in England, which is similar to Scotland as well. So this would be decided upon, I'd expect, and sort of towards the end of July into August. You can make representations by either emailing planning at Hyndburn or writing to them at this address. Just a reminder that a change to their view is not considered a material planning consideration. That obviously views are important, but just because your view is what you see outside your window changes doesn't isn't a valid reason that there's to object to a planning application. If you're looking for sort of further information on how to make a representation or comments to this planning application, you can find that out by going on the planning portal, and also Planning Aid England have information as well, and that you should be able to hopefully get what you're looking for there. Alternatively, I'm happy to take questions, and if I can't answer them, I will look into things and see what I can do to help. I think that's all I have to say for this time.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. Before moving on to Dave, does anybody have any specific questions about the nature of the proposals? Any clarification required?
Yes, it's Gordon here.
Yeah.
Mention of contaminants on the site. Could you let us know what that means? I'm thinking if we're talking about biodiversity and working on the site, what sort of things are we talking about?
Oh, I can't. It's an old geophys report from about 20 odd years ago. Could it, the source wasn't known, but I mean, I believe, I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one to answer. I
Shall
have
I answer this, Nicholas?
Pardon?
I could answer this if you want.
I think you could be a bit, Mike. I've got colleagues that would be better placed that have more experience in contamination. But Phil, take the floor.
Well,
yes.
When we were examining the previous proposal for the Green Business Park, Gordon,
Yeah,
we carried out a site investigation with a firm called Worm's Eye in Burnley, and they looked at both the ground bearing capacity of the land and whether there was any chemical contamination. And there is limited chemical contamination, though it's not clear where it came from. So this was a survey that was done 20 years ago, and it revealed pockets of some heavy metals, and I think it was polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which you'll know what that means, Gordon, because you're a chemist, aren't you?
Yes, the reason I'm asking is I understand the thing with the contaminants for house building, but if you've got people
just
doing work on site.
If I can just complete
Sorry.
what was established. So at the time, the Worm's Eye drew a series of graphs with the levels of contamination indicated on them, and there are thresholds, so horizontal lines across the graph for acceptable levels of contamination for different kinds of development. And what it showed was that the site would not be suitable for housing, not because just by walking across the site there would be a danger to you, but because houses with gardens involve people digging, growing vegetables, children eating soil, things like that.
Yeah.
There is the conclusion of the study was that there is no general risk to anybody walking across the site or living in the vicinity of the site, or indeed for simple forms of construction such as this.
Right.
Okay. So we have a number of biodiversity measures which we want to carry out for the management of the grassland, the woodland, the pond, the hedgerow, that we expect that a lot of that will be done by volunteer effort, but none of that contamination represents a risk in that respect.
That's what I needed to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Any other questions for Nicholas?
Yeah, sorry, I've got my hand up. It's Caroline. My screen says Penelope, but it's my daughter's device I'm using.
Okay.
Hi. I feel like we could do with a little bit more detail. You mentioned that there will be net biodiversity gains. Have you assessed the losses within that? So what's it compared to?
The current baseline, I believe, was it Graham Sketcher that did the biodiversity report? Yep. Yeah. So the biodiversity net gains aren't mandatory until November, but Graham kindly has done them. So it's on the baseline as the site was assessed at the time, which would have been last year, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are roe deer that frequent that field daily. There are foxes and there are bats that hunt across that field. I guess one of the worries and objections really is around the impact on particularly the bats. There's a barn owl that also hunts across that field. My understanding is that I get that you've got to balance the ecological as well as the sort of nature impacts, but I guess I'd like to sort of see how that is going to be assessed further, if at all. And birds, for example, they can mistake the panels for water, and that can have catastrophic effects. That's my understanding. So that's why I'm saying, yeah, we're looking at some biodiversity gains, but are we looking at the losses against that?
Well, accompanying the application is the a habitat survey report by Graham Skelcher, who's a qualified ecologist. So if you look at the documents on the council's list, there is a full report there which surveys the existing state of the site and lists the species present on the site, etc., and assesses the ecological, the habitat value. And there is also a second report by Graham, which is a biodiversity management plan. So he goes into a lot of detail in that about the proposals for managing the biodiversity, and it contains a recognized methodology for measuring how much the habitat will be improved, which is now a planning requirement. Any development has to demonstrate at least a 10% gain in biodiversity. And he's done that methodology and he's applied it to this proposal. And it comes out.
Where's this report? Sorry.
It comes out at a 13% gain.
Where can we get hold of that report? Because it wasn't attached to the original documentation, your planning documentation. It was appendices, but there was nothing there. So where can we get the report?
If you go on the council's planning site, you click on the link to this application number. There's a whole list of the documents accompanying the application.
Yeah, I've looked at them, but I didn't see that report at all.
It must be there.
Yeah, it should be there. I will double check with the council tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if there's a technical issue, I'll make sure.
Can I just conclude? I appreciate you've done extensive reports and they're by qualified people. I'm a qualified person myself in my own field, so I understand where you're coming from. But I suppose are we to conclude then that there is going to be some winners and losers in this, but as long as the percentage gain meets the planning requirements, then it will go ahead?
If we wouldn't knowingly cause ecological harm or habitat harm, and there may be measures that we can incorporate, for instance, with the foxes to increase access in, right, with passes under the fence and things like that.
What about the deer? they breed in that field. They have young in the field every year.
Right.
Where would they go? Because they wouldn't be able to get in the fences, I presume, because if a deer could get in, then I presume a person could get in, and that would present you with a security risk, wouldn't it?
I'll be straight up honest. The fencing would be to keep deer out. Deer and solar panels should be kept apart.
Right. So there would be some losses then, but what you're saying is the overall. I just want some transparency here. So the overall net gain outweighs that there might be some losers.
Well, yes, in a way, but no, because the deer would still have they would still have access to the pond and the woodland and part of the sort of the perimeter of the site. But yeah, where the panels are, they would be kept. They would have to be kept out.
Yeah, I appreciate there's a biodiversity management plan. I just wanted some transparency about how this percentage, because it's a big selling point, isn't it? If you're going to say, well, we're creating this, we're creating that. However, I'm just speaking for what I see outside every day. They haven't got a voice, have they? Normally, these, I'll come to other questions after, but I want to stick with your presentation, Nicholas, first. I know you mentioned as well that, and I think I appreciate that a view is not a valid objection, and I don't think anybody would object on those terms, well aware that, you don't have a right to a view. However, there is a visual sensitivity assessment, and again, this is just for my understanding, which classifies it as medium, I believe, in terms of visual impact, considering the properties on Hill Street. But then when I look at the table on page 6, it does appear to meet with high sensitivity. So I'm not quite understanding that differential, because if I look at high sensitivity, it says residents experiencing principal views from dwellings would be in that category. So I think I'm not fully understanding how it's been deemed to be a medium impact on Hill Street residents.
So high sensitive and then a medium. That my colleague produced that. I will get back. I'll check. I'll run that past her and
okay.
But yes, the landscape and visual is. I mean, it's probably one of the most important things for any planning application, because you're right. The right to their view might not be something, but it's still important. You don't want to. I'm thinking,
perimeter fences and things like that. Appreciate the views retained from the upper levels of the houses, but in terms of visual impact, you come on to things like property values, don't you?
Yes.
We've got to consider our futures living in this area. The other thing was occasional glint and glare. I suppose occasional's all right if you're passing by, isn't it? But if it's occasional and you're living there, it could be a different thing. And I think, again, on that small row of houses, your picture on your title screen really illustrates it well, that the houses are slap bang in front of it.
Yes.
And there are winners and losers there as well, aren't there, with some houses impacted more than others, depending on where they're situated on the row.
Yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't responsible for the report, but from having read it, my understanding is that certain conditions would have to, be met for the glint and glare to happen. The way that solar works is that even on a cloudy day, it's still going to produce lots of on an overcast day. Sorry, it's still going to produce lots of power. I mean, for example, solar doesn't do well in high temperatures because of the fluids that are used in the panels. So but you're talking. You would have to the person that did the report would be able to maybe
Yeah, can I
elaborate more.
come in?
So we could maybe ask him to maybe elaborate a bit more. I'll get back to my colleague on the sensitivity issue and just to see if I think I know I haven't got it in front of me, but I'll get back to you and get that explained.
I'd really appreciate that, because
Yes.
Okay.
I noted that it was said at the beginning, not yourself, Nicholas, sorry, that it's taken 2 years to get to this point and a lot of work has gone into it, and you've done all the necessary assessments, obviously. But I think sort of planning the proposal itself says that the community should be consulted with at the earliest opportunity. But I feel like this consultation's happening now when the planning permission's already been submitted.
It's not too late to make amendments.
And that feels a little, oh, that's great. So is the scope for compromise then within plans?
Say again.
Is the scope for compromise?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay, right,
yes.
okay.
There's room
So-
for discussion and amendment.
Yeah,
So
can I come in
I
there?
don't really want to dominate, and I think I am a little bit, but just one last thing is that I'd
Sorry,
like
Caroline,
to
can I?
suggest that the residents of Hill Street, that there is a specific meeting for them, a face-to-face meeting.
Well, we'll consider that, definitely. Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
yeah, we'll definitely consider that. Yeah. Mick Miller's got his hand up.
Sorry, can I just come in on the glint and glare issue?
Yeah.
That you normally get glint and glare issue from a solar farm when the sun is very low in the sky.
Mhm.
If it's high in the sky, then the reflection from the solar panel is going to reflect back up high in the sky. So if you were flying overhead, you might get glint and glare. So obviously the houses on Hill Street are facing north onto the panels. So when the sun is behind the houses, it will be relatively high in the sky. So the chances of getting glint and glare back into the houses is very remote. And then of course, when the sun's rising or setting, it's off to the east or the west. So any glint or glare will tend to go sideways rather than back towards the houses. And you've also got there'll be a bit of shading from the trees on the east side when the sun's very low in the sky there. So that's why the glint and glare report said that glint and glare on the houses was very unlikely. They did point out the possibility of some glint and glare for the railway line. So we need to talk to Northern Rail to make sure that we make sure that the panels on the northern end of the site are screened from the railway line to remove that risk entirely.
Thank you, Dave. That's basically what I was wanting to say. But yeah.
Okay. So, Mick Miller.
Yeah, thanks, Phil, for inviting me to this this presentation. I'm clearly very happy that finally something's happened with Meadowfield after all these years. And while there will be winners and losers in terms of the environmental impact, I take it the site will not only just be a springboard for the energy generation of renewables, but also for increased biodiversity across the whole site going forward. The planning application does give or set out certain criteria for biodiversity. You're not just hoping to meet the minimum criteria to overcome that threshold. Can I assume that you'll be exploiting the site further after the site has been developed and is generating energy for the next 20, 30, 40 years?
What do you mean by exploiting, Rick?
Well, obviously,
I think we've lost him.
We've lost you.
Right.
Are you still there, Mick?
If you don't mind me saying, I think he means we can get more biodiversity by hedgerow planting, wildflowers, etc., etc. I think that's what he meant, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
No, well, that's a fair comment. So there is the proposal for the,
He mentioned renewable energy, but isn't the main recipient industry, an industrial buyer, not sort of,
for about 60% of it, yes.
yeah. And who will get the remaining 40%?
It goes to the grid.
It goes to the grid. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So in that sense, it feeds into domestic supply as well as a green source of electricity rather than a fossil fuel source. Okay, any more questions? So it's now Dave.
Yeah, Nicholas, can you stop screen sharing?
Yep.
Right, so I'm Dave Green. You can see my slides, Phil?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm Dave Green, Development Manager for Share Energy, and as Phil says, I've been working with him on this for 2.5 years or so. Share Energy, we're based in Shrewsbury on the Welsh borders. We only do community energy schemes. We've helped set up several renewable energy societies across the UK. We work from initial feasibility work right up to doing the share offers and then helping to administer the societies. Afterwards, I would say that Share Energy has only got one E in the middle. So if you want to Google us, it's one word, but really it should be Share Energy or Share Energy. But the number of people who write us is 2 words with 2 E's. So if you want to Google us, one word, one E in the middle. So there is no government support for such renewable energy schemes now. Until about 3 years ago, we had the feed-in tariff. We have had help with the development costs, but we have no help at all with the capital costs of building it. So it's important that we can sell the electricity produced to an organisation that can use a good proportion of the electricity through what's known as a direct wire. So a local industrial company has expressed interest in such a direct wire arrangement, and as Phil has said, it looks like they could use around 60% of the electricity generated. They're a valued local employer. They've been in the area for, is it 175 years? We will be selling them electricity at a significant reduction on what they buy from the grid. And we were helping to reduce their carbon emissions and also remove strain. They will therefore be withdrawing less energy from the grid and therefore reducing the strain on the grid locally. Now, it would be nice if we could sell our green electricity to lots of people, but unfortunately, that's a very difficult thing to do. It has all sorts of safety implications if you're supplying more than one building, and particularly if you want to supply individual houses. There is a scheme that might be of interest called Energy Local, whereby if you've got a renewable energy scheme running in an area that's generating electricity that's going to the grid, then people in that substation area can get a reduction on their electricity price. But then you have to sign up to that one supplier that's got that arrangement. And the only supplier that's doing this at the moment is Octopus, and they're doing it as a trial scheme. So we haven't built that into the whole sort of model, but once it's up and running and we know how much energy is being used and how much is exported to the grid, that's something we could look on as a potential add-on in the future. Now, I think Phil's already mentioned this, that the Prospects Foundation have set up a separate society. It's known as a community benefit society, Prospects Community Energy. They will it says they will own the equipment and run the equipment. They won't own the land. The land still belongs to the Prospects Foundation, and Prospects Community Energy will pay a rent to the foundation. Why a community benefit society? Well, it's just about the only structure now whereby you can easily issue shares. So if we were doing this all through loans or bonds or something, then Prospects Community Energy could have been a charity or interest company. But if you want to do a share issue, and the idea is, you know, getting more people involved, getting, you know, local residents and others will be able to buy shares in the society. They'll be able to earn around 3 to 4% interest a year. So that gets more people involved and seeing it as something they're involved with. There are hundreds of such societies across the UK now, including South Hill Solar, Stockport Hydro, Baywind. Shareholdings normally range from about 100 to 100,000 shares is the legal maximum at £1 each. So you can get in. We haven't decided on a minimum share raise, but I think Prospects will be keen to keep that relatively low so that people can come in for 100 quid or so. And all people who buy shares become members of the society. There's one vote per member. So no one, you know, if a couple of people buy £100,000 shares worth of shares, they can't dominate the society. And there's also a thing called an asset lock. That's not on the screen, but basically Prospects Community Energy, if they decided they wanted to sell the solar farm, they could only sell it to a similar organisation. They couldn't sell it to a big corporate, so it's got to stay in sort of community ownership. And the society will need to raise nearly £2 million for this. So it's a lot of money, and we're thinking that maybe half of that would be in shares and half in loans, probably. So the society will pay rent to the Prospects Foundation. So the foundation has got a sort of guaranteed regular income, but also any surpluses made by Prospects Community Energy will have to go to community benefit, and most, if not all of that, will go to the Prospects Foundations to further in their environmental projects or other community initiatives. I would say, though, that those surpluses are not expected until the latter years of the project. When we had a generous feed-in tariff, then there were sizable community benefit funds from year one for such schemes, whereas now, you know, it takes a while. It's like having a mortgage. You know, if we're borrowing £1 million, we've got to pay 3 or 4% interest on that in the first few years. So the idea is you then, if you've got any spare capital, you use it to pay off some of your shareholders, or a proportion to each shareholder, which reduces your interest. And as the interest level comes down each year, then you get to a point where surpluses are made, which can be invested for community benefit. Now, the shareholders will be paid interest. The rules of the society state that we can only pay a reasonable rate of interest enough to attract the investment in the first place. And it is interest. It's not a dividend. So, you know, if the scheme did incredibly well and we suddenly find that we're selling, you know, 80 or 90% of the electricity directly and only 10% is going to the grid, and the income's much, much higher than we were expecting, we cannot pay that out as a dividend to the shareholders. That is a surplus, and it has to go to community benefit in one form or another. So Prospects Community Energy are taking the scheme through development and planning. That we've had funding from the Rural Community Energy Fund. As we said, it's in planning at the moment. The planners will certainly consider any valid objections to the scheme, and we're more than happy to discuss with the planners if they feel that any alterations need to be made to the scheme. And then we're hoping that planning permission will be granted sort of in the autumn. These things seem to take a long time these days. Now that council teams have been whittled down, and you know, and due process needs to be gone through, so it needs to make sure that people are consulted and had a chance to speak. So if we're here in the autumn, we could do a share offer over the winter and then look to be installing next spring. We'd like to thank the Northwest Net Zero Hub and the Royal Rural Community Energy Fund for their support in getting this project this far. And do we have any further questions? Is there anything I've missed, Phil?
No, I don't think so. There must be something that somebody wants to know.
Yeah, this is Angela Murray. It's coming up as Laura Murray. It's my daughter's, and I can't get the screen to work. Dave, have you, because you've extensive planning of this kind of stuff, have you ever done them that bigger field? Have you ever done it near a house, near as close to the houses as these are?
I'm trying to think. I've only been with Share Energy for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I can't think of another one which is quite as close that I know of that's quite as close to houses.
No, I've looked into it and I can't seem to find any this close. They usually are further away from residential properties. I thought, because you said you're community based, I thought maybe
Yes.
you'd seen some close. But
Yeah.
thank you.
Angie, I've looked and I can't find any either. The one that
No.
you mentioned in Wales near Newport, that would generate enough power to power 44,800 houses, I believe.
Yes.
So that's massive, that one, like you were saying. But yeah, I'm
Yes.
not aware of any that are sort of in front of houses.
May I? I've got some questions, please. I'm
Hang
Yvonne
on,
Hayes.
can I just finish off that point?
Yeah,
It's been
of course.
raised. Is the closeness a concern because of noise or visually or glint and glare, or what is the main concern?
Well,
is it the appearance of it?
No, not particularly. It's the unknown.
Oh,
I've seen them. I've seen them all over the country, but I've never seen them that close to houses before.
Okay.
The main one for me is the nature, and obviously when he said that the deers are going to have to go, maybe if the fence was not so all encompassing round the road and round, you know, the outside, because
Okay.
it seems to just doesn't circle round. You're enclosing a bit where there's like a building or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the main one for me, is that the nature, but also it is the unknown. I'm very frightened that this, you know, it could turn out to be a disaster for us. So I just wanted to know whether other houses had it and it was, you know, it was okay for them. So
Okay. Well,
I mean, the plans do include a butterfly bank immediately.
yeah,
between
that
houses
doesn't
and
mean
the
anything really. A butterfly, I don't even know what that means, but it's more the mammals that we're bothered about, the small mammals that live in the grass, the
Yes.
foxes, the deer. There's a
Yeah.
full ecosystem going on in that field,
Yeah.
and it's working really well.
Yes.
But the
Well,
fence would probably...
my thought on that is that actually what we're doing is we're providing a protected area for wildlife. There will be space with
certain wildlife,
certain wildlife, yes. As you say, the deer, we have to keep the deer out, but certainly small mammals will be free to come and go. The geese will love it. They'll be free of interference from humans and dogs. So,
there isn't that much to be honest. There's nobody
yeah.
walks in that field. It is really just for the wildlife, but it is the unknown for us, really.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we have to bear in mind that this is not being proposed by some faceless corporation. This is, you know, the Prospects Foundation, you know, environment is what they're there for. So they will be
community.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
the fence is essential for security. Without protecting the site, it will be impossible to insure it. And if it's impossible to insure it, it'll be
Yeah, I understand that.
impossible
I
to
don't think
invest
it
in
has
it.
to be, I don't think it has to be exactly that shape. You could still have a through fur for the deers on the outside if you didn't have it going straight up to the fence. But
Well,
I mean, that can be discussed in the,
Yeah. The
hopefully
thing
in
is,
the more in-depth.
the fence will only enclose the generation area. It won't enclose the woodland.
No, but it does enclose, I think you've got where you're going to have the building site. It goes straight up past that. It doesn't just go around the solar panels.
Well, it encloses the access.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah,
But
the
it
access.
excludes the pond. The pond will be outside the fence.
Yeah, yeah.
Woodland will be outside the fence, and an area of grassland
Yeah.
will be outside the fence. But we can't not protect it with a fence.
Oh no, I understand that. It's just the fence could have a different shape that then could give a through fare. Anyway, that's to be just discussed in more detail, isn't it, really?
Okay.
Thank you for answering that.
Two other people have their hands up. Yvonne Heap.
Yes, I'm originally from the west end of Oswald. I've lived in Accrington. I now live in Clayton Moors. I know the area well from when I was younger. I understand Hill Street's concerns. All I can say to those people on Hill Street now, after hearing today's presentation, is that in Clayton Moors there is a solar farm put up with the United Utilities water at Altham, and our Clayton Moors prospect panel have Millennium Wood by its side. There is no noise from it. What I'd like to ask, will these panels rotate, or are they going to be stable?
No, they're static.
Yeah.
They're static.
Yeah.
Right. That was all I was wondering.
Okay.
And the houses up in Altham, there are very few, but there are 2 bungalows that back onto it. Maybe if somebody could ask them to chat with you, because the other houses from further down the road are maybe probably a quarter of a mile away.
Yeah. I know the site you mean.
Yeah. So if I was just going to say, if somebody wanted to go up, have a walk around Millennium Wood, you get an idea of just how big it is.
Yeah.
That was, I'm trying to pacify here. I'm trying to, you know, say we have got one in Hyndburn already.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I'm already aware of that. I think most of us are, because we all kind of are local people like yourself. I don't feel that the Altham one is particularly sited near houses, and as you say, it backs onto the bungalows, not in front of them. I think, just to add to Angie's point, it is the unknown. There are glare assessments, there are visual impact assessments, we're concerned about the wildlife as well. But I suppose if, by example, these do tend to be near houses, then I guess the mitigations that are suggested, we're not assured really, are we, that they're going to be effective for us as residents. No. And as Angie was saying, our worry then is that you know, it doesn't turn out to be a disaster for us in front of our houses.
Okay.
I
and
agree
property
with
values as well. I think there's some information that suggests that it has a detrimental effect. So
also, for your wildlife, in Millennium Wood, we have an owl. We've got burrows. We're absolutely sure we've seen fox. We've evidence of foxes too. Mm-hmm. But as for the deer, they would just roam at any time when they felt like it, because they don't just come up, they don't stay in one area, do they? So you might not see them, you might see them for a few years, not see them for 5 years. So I'm sure they would negotiate round and probably use the other side of Foxhill Bank.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think we're taking too much away from those.
Okay.
I think that's all I've had to say today. Thank
So
you.
Mick Miller still has his hand up, or his hand up again.
Yeah, sorry about that, Phil. I pressed the button on the side of the iPad.
Okay.
Yeah, the carbon savings from that solar panel, who will benefit from those carbon savings, or will they be sold as carbon offsetting for other organisations, or will they be used elsewhere?
Well, I would say in the wider scheme of things, we all benefit from carbon savings.
Oh no,
Potentially,
I know,
yeah.
I know. But some organisations have set targets, and they then become a commodity in themselves. So not only are you generating electricity, you are now have an asset that's not really quantifiable to some degree, but people would be interested in certainly purchasing those carbon credits to be used against their own strategic objectives. I'm just wondering if that's been considered, if that's a revenue stream that's been considered in your business planning.
I mean, the company who will be buying 60% of it want to buy it as green electricity. So, you know, they will get the carbon credits. What we do with the export will vary. If we can get a power purchase agreement for the export as renewable energy, then the renewable credits will go with that as well. So there's unlikely to be any spare that we can sell separately. And yes, I think that's a slightly dubious system anyway.
I agree, Dave. Yeah.
So
I'm a bit dubious about that.
And we have to beware of double accounting in these things, you know. So if somebody's buying it from us as green electricity, they are buying the carbon savings. So, you know, the Prospects Foundation might say, oh, we're generating all this green electricity, but they couldn't then offset that carbon against their other activities because they've sold it as green electricity. And if they were to do that, it would be double accounting, which it doesn't help anybody.
That's correct. Yeah.
We've got Odette with her hand up.
Thank you. I also live on Hill Street. You were talking just now about, we've been talking about the wildlife on the field, and you were talking about how the pond will still be accessible and free. However, from what I could see on the planning, what is going to be, I mean, the picture you're showing us is like a nice little meadow with like wildflowers and things between the panels. But from what we're looking at the plans that you had, what's between the panels on the plans looks like limestone composite to me, rather than grassland and flower meadow. So your talk of the benefit to wildlife, that won't benefit small mammals. It won't benefit. It doesn't benefit the bats because they hunt over the field. They, you know, a lot of the field is actually, there's a lot of woodland around the field, but the field itself is a different eco environment to the woodland, and the animals that use the field won't hunt in the woodland. The bats won't fly over the woodland to get there, and they fly over the field. What I'm trying to ask is also the geese that nest on the pond. They don't have their nests around the pond. They have their nests in the grassland. Again, are you going to actually? Is this going to be meadow between the solar panels, with access for small mammals and so on, or is it going to be? Is it going to be basically a limestone pavement, basically?
This will be meadow. The grass that is there will be staying, and we'll be looking at enhancing the planting in the grass as well to increase wildflowers. There is no reason. I don't know of any solar farm that's put limestone down.
Well, I'm just responding to what it looks like on the plans.
Yeah, that's maybe a lack of clarity in the plans, but no, the idea, this has always been talked about Phil's original idea of this was as a solar meadow. So we're keeping all the grass, and in fact you can get a wider range of habitats because some of the grass is obviously sheltered by the shade of the panels, and that helps particularly as we're getting hotter and drier summers. Actually, you can get better grass growth under the panels because it's protected from the sun. So we certainly wouldn't. I mean, apart from anything else, putting a limestone covering over this site would cost a fortune. And what would be the point? We very much want to enhance the biodiversity.
So Nicholas, can you clarify, please? Because I've seen this limestone treatment on the plans. There does seem to be a bit of confusion here.
Yeah, and which is this the biodiversity plan?
No, in the one of the sections it shows the construction of the stand.
Oh, right, the lines, right. I think that would refer to the access track.
It's right across the field.
No, it's under the panels. It does show that on one of the sections.
Okay, right. I'm just trying to think because we local gen didn't produce any drawings apart from the location plan. So would that be Vital Energy or sorry?
Yeah,
yeah.
It'll be Vital Energy's drawing. But
yeah,
it would be normal, wouldn't it, for it to be grass under the panels?
Yes. What I'm trying to get at is that at the moment, local gen have over half a dozen projects we're involved in, and one of them throughout the United Kingdom, from down in Surrey all the way up to I think we're near Angus, we're thereabouts now, and we have one that we are doing peatland restoration because of the habitat, but most of them you're looking at improving the grassland, supplementing it with wildflower mix and so on.
Yes.
to help the native insect population, and everything takes benefits from there. So yeah.
So the vision was that it would remain as a meadow and be managed for the maximum biodiversity benefit as managed grassland, which it isn't at the moment. I mean, there is no positive management of the grassland area at the moment, and
with respect, it doesn't need positive management. It's doing very fine as a grassland for the wildlife that is there at the moment.
Well, you can improve the value of it.
That's fine. You can improve it, but we're concerned about it not being improved
by managing it in certain ways. And grazing is one of the traditional ways of doing it at specific times of the year, or cutting it by hand at specific times of the year. So
yeah,
it is the intention that it would remain as grassland.
And is there any idea on compromise of the extent of the solar panels, if they could be moved back by a row or two? Is it possible that you could actually create a wider wildlife corridor? Because, for instance, the deer do actually go from the west side to the east side of the field to the woodlands adjoining either side.
Well, we'll definitely consider
maybe looking to creating a corridor. I accept that if they can't go across have access to the actual solar panel field, can a corridor be created for them, because they do use it?
Well, we will consider it, but they
have been using it for several years now. It's not just like the occasional visit.
We have to have regard for the impact on the generation capacity.
Yeah, I understand.
Which obviously has a long-term financial impact. But we'll definitely look at it and discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding the fence, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Regarding the fence in front of the houses, I believe it's going to be like 10 foot high, approximately 3 meters. Is that correct?
Drawings show 2 meters.
2
well,
meters.
3 meters. Right, and it's going to be like a sort of chain link fence. So each opening is approximately 2 inches high by approximately 1 inch wide.
It's what's called unclimbable fencing. It's very close weld
Yeah.
weld mesh type of
Yeah,
stuff.
right, but you can see straight through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So for reducing the glare, what about in front of that fence, since it's only 2 meters high, of planting a hedgerow, which therefore encourages even more wildlife? But if you do hawthorn, that discourages people climbing over as well.
Well, it wouldn't be immediately effective. It could be a long-term solution.
Well,
You need something
if when the fence was put up, if the hedgerow was planted then as progress, then it's got a chance to start progressing and growing straight away then, hasn't it?
Yes, but at the outset, the site has to be secure
Yeah. So first of all, you
from
put
the
your
very
fencing
beginning.
up. Yeah,
Pardon?
so it's possible to put your fencing up and then put the hedgerow right along the front of the houses and going up the side, right,
Yeah.
which would therefore reduce the visual impact of it.
Yes.
In that lot, and also help to reduce any glare, because obviously it's going to grow to about 2
Yes.
to 2.5 meters high, and with like regular cutting once a year, like the farmers do at the side of the roads, right, it's easily maintained then
Yes.
at minimal cost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot more aesthetically looking for everyone, and also it, in a way, it will protect the lane, because it will stop people coming up trying to sightsee on it, therefore damaging the lane, which is already, a fragile lane.
Yeah.
Because once word gets out that they can't actually see anything, they're not going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand what I mean.
Yes.
And
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I know quite a lot of the residents on Hill Street agree with that, right? Because I'm one of the residents as well on there. So, but go on, I'll let you carry on now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
We'd certainly be happy to plant a hedge, but I think as Phil has said, it would take a few years to really take full effect.
Yeah, I understand that.
I've had a look at the drawing. The only drawing I can see at the moment that mentions any limestone is for the access track.
Oh, right.
It's
Okay.
shown in one of the sections as between 2 rows of panels. There's an access track. I think I haven't got all the planning documents here, but that's the only mention I can find of limestone.
Yeah.
It certainly wouldn't be our intention to limestone the whole site.
No. Okay. Well, we'll definitely have a look at it though. But as I say, the intention has always been that it remains as grassland.
Yeah.
So.
Would it be possible to rent out the grassland partly to a local farmer for grazing sheep on during the summer months?
It's possible.
And therefore reduce the need for cutting, and it's a more naturist, a natural nature way of doing it.
That is done on some solar sites. Yeah.
It's commonly done. You wouldn't do it in summer because you want the flowers to blossom and so on. But in autumn and winter, that can occur. Yes.
So are there any further questions?
Has anyone realised how much, if and by how much the value of the property is going to drop by?
No, I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Well, I've spoken with a couple of estate agents, and one says it could reduce by quite a vast amount. So if everyone on the street's house was valued prior to it being built and then valued after, right, would there be some form of compensation? Because some people have bought these houses as like an investment, so that like in later years when they retire, they can sell it and move to a bungalow somewhere else and be using that as their retirement pot. Then all of a sudden, like possibly a third of it's gone. So what do they do then?
I don't think that anybody looking at developing a site for any purpose at all is normally in a situation where they would compensate neighbours for any loss of value. It's not a done thing. I think the site will enhance the area.
So you're saying that the value of our houses will go up then?
No, but I have
Or
no
is it going
reason
to
to
stay the
believe that
same?
they're going to. I've no reason to believe that they're going to come down. I think
So
if you had a noisy, if somebody was to put a noisy industrial estate next door, then you could see that would be a reason for affecting the value of the properties. But to have a site that's being well looked after by a local environmental charity on your doorstep is unlikely to affect the value of your property.
I'm not sure it is being looked after, to be truthful. The wall at the side is dangerously falling apart. And in terms of the lane itself and maintenance of that, we do that at our own cost. I don't think there's any one person here, hand on heart, that would admit to being happy with a suggestion that the house property would devalue. And I take your point that if somebody came and built something noisy on there, fair enough, but we're not in that position, so that's not a comparison, is it? It's not factual comparison. We're talking about the impact of this.
And like you've already said, there's no one else been in this situation that you don't know of.
Well, there are many sites that are developed near to, not necessarily for solar, but for other development, quite close to residential property. And if planning permission is deemed to be grantable, that's as much as we, as owners of the site, can be asked to consider. There is, as Dave has said, there is no developer anywhere that would compensate for a perceived loss of value of neighbouring properties. It just doesn't happen. And it's certainly not going to happen for a charity-owned site for a development run by a community benefit society. It's just not within our financial ability to do that. If it is deemed by the council as local planning authority that permission can be granted, and we hope it can, that's as much as we're required to address.
So if it goes ahead, everyone at Prospect Energy and everything else to do with Prospect, right, are happy for the residents to lose quite a large amount of money.
Well, I don't accept the proposition that the properties would lose value. I don't agree with that. I don't think they would.
Well, I'll get mine valued, and other residents will get it valued, and then once it's up, right, and we get it valued, if it's gone down, right, then we obviously, well, we'll have to have a president court case or something like that. I don't know, right, or something, right, because at the end of the day, like we've already established, this is the first of this, like this. You don't, no one here knows of any others that are in the same situation and proximity to the houses. But picking up on something else you said earlier, right, about consulting rail track about the glare, the solar panels are facing the houses. There's not going to be any glare facing onto the railway line affecting the drivers. But if there's a glare that's glaring onto the houses, what happens if a car's driving along and the glare hits them, right, and they end up involved, like, in hitting something?
There is no way that there could be glare onto the road. The panels are too far back from the road for any glare to affect the road. The reason maybe I wasn't clear, but it's to do with the angle of the sun. So you know.
No, I understand the angle of the sun, and I've lived up there for 7 years, and I've had 7 summers up there, and I know where the sun rises and where it sets and everything else all year round.
Yeah.
Right, but if it's hitting the angle, right, if it's possible for us to hit the houses, right, it's possible then for us to hit a vehicle when it's moving. Because if you're saying that rail track have to be consulted on it, when the solar panels aren't even going to be facing the railway lines. So how therefore can it glare against it, affecting the driver?
The effect occurs when the sun is would be very low on an evening sky at certain times of year, when you get a glancing effect off the panels towards the railway line. It's very minor. It's only affecting a few panels on the top edge of the site, and we will be looking with Northern Rail to ensure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm going off what your plan shows,
there's
and it
no
shows
way
all
it
the
can affect
panels
the
not
road.
facing, none of the panels like being able to face it. So, and the angle of the sun, it doesn't hit there. So it's be able to glint onto the railway line at that point.
Okay. It won't affect the houses though.
Right. So I'm not going to, none of the residents are going to get glint and glare onto the houses then.
That's what the study shows.
Right. So if we do get glint and glare, right, we can then take action.
It would be a very rare event if you were to get glint and glare into the upper windows of the houses. We're not saying it's impossible, but it would be a very rare.
So are you going to provide blackout blinds and all that lot? Because as you can gather, right, I'm at work, right, I drive a truck, right? Many a time the residents on the street will tell you, right, I start work anything from like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning onwards, I go to work. So therefore I have to go to bed early. I sleep at the front of the house. So if the glare's like bright enough so as to come in through the windows, right, and if it wakes me up, right, then I've had a disturbed sleep. And I drive a truck. So if I'm involved in an accident, they say, well, why are you tired? I go, well, the glare from the solar panels like affected me and that lot, like, so then that's not my fault, is it?
But you can get glare off many things. Water, zinc roofs, different kinds of roofs.
Yeah, but we don't have any roofs opposite the house. We don't have any water opposite the house.
But Neil, if you imagine the situation, you're talking about early evening, the sun is setting in the west. It's going to be glancing, it will be glancing off the solar panels. It will be coming off at the same angle, so it will be heading out towards the east, towards the southeast. It will be missing the houses entirely. It will be heading towards the woodland.
Well, I just hope so. I just hope so.
The only, you know, the way sun bounces off something, you know,
I understand how angles work.
Yeah. So you know, if the sun was very low over the top of the house onto the panels, then it's possible it could reflect back onto the houses, but that's going to be a very rare event.
So the thing to say about this is that a glint and glare study has been carried out and the report has been submitted with the application. It will be looked at by the planning authority when they consider whether to grant permission. And if they think there's an issue, I've no doubt they will bring it to our attention. But we believe that it won't cause a nuisance to the houses to any significant degree. And we hope that the planners will agree with that and grant permission. And that's all that we can be required to do. We don't think there will be a problem for the houses. We genuinely don't think there will be a problem for the houses. So does that answer your question?
Yes or no, right? I'm not against the solar farm, right? I just want it to be done right and for the residents on the street to be protected from like glint and glare and anything else and that. And
well, what more would you expect us to do than to carry out an expert to commission an expert study that demonstrates that there is no problem?
Right, 1 minute, right? Has that expert actually been up on that street, right? In the summertime, in the evening, in the morning, in the winter time, springtime, and all that lot?
No, but you know, we're in a technological age when all this thing can be modelled very accurately.
Yeah,
he has visited the site. He's visited the site on 2 or 3 occasions. He's had a very good look round, and yeah.
And used the recognised methodology for doing an assessment using models.
Yeah, so, but models aren't right all the time, are they?
I beg your pardon?
Models aren't right all the time.
I think we've answered your question.
Do you
Can we
want
move on?
me to
Go on, you can move
come
on.
in on this?
Yeah,
Yes.
Robin, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Robin Jones. I sit with Lancashire County Council and Northwest Net Zero Hub. I have a master's in renewable energy engineering. We can model the path of the sun extremely precisely. We can model the size of a building, and if we're using any kind of standard software like PVSol or PVSYST, it will work out all the angles that can possibly do that at. We know what angles that's going to come in at, and we can measure that even at the lowest angle. You're looking at about like 12.5 degrees. And I was typing this out, but these are going to be an east-west setting, so generally speaking, sort of you're going to be like 30 degrees elevation. It's like even if you have the sort of the worst possible day, so like it's December 21st, your winter solstice, lowest point in the sky, probably about 12.5 degrees. Even at that, the angular incidence, angular reflection, they're going to be able to path that directly with software. It does it extremely well, because if you have to do it by hand, it's a pain, but with the software, it's so easy, it's unbelievable. If they've done that, they will have done that as part of the Glinton Glare study, and that will have shown where those are going to go. I mean, and those days that you do have those lowest angles, it's middle of winter. You normally got loads of sun, loads of clouds, and the sun level is really low. So
What about in the summer though?
It's going to be really high in the sky. You're talking.
Yeah, but at sunset, at dawn and dusk, as the sun's rising and the sun's going down.
Yeah, so it's going to be in the east and the west. So it's going to be coming at an angle that's going to reflect it back up into the sky. That's just how the geometry works.
Right. Well, like I said, that one we shall see on when there's actually a solar panel there.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, can I also ask about, we've mentioned the access road.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's us residents who are paying for the upkeep on that, and
Yeah.
we all pay that towards it. The upkeep is not optimal. Any more traffic on that road, and it is a very fragile road. What are we going to do? What? And if this solar farm does add to it, which I think it will, there's no, what guarantees are you going to have? We had Network Rail using the depot on the field a couple of years ago to sort out the railway bridge.
Yes.
That destroyed the road.
Yes, but they repaired it.
Just wait a moment. Although they did try and resurface it, it made it much, much worse. The resurfacing lasted a matter of months, and we've been trying to play catch up ever since. There are things that happen on the road. What guarantees do we have that this isn't going to make the road access even worse for us?
Why should it?
Because you will be using the road as well.
Well,
and so up till now, Prospect have said that they won't contribute towards us resurfacing the road every time we've done it.
Well, up to now, Prospects has owned the site at Coach Road for 20 years, and our usage of the road has been negligible.
Yeah, and will it be?
Because
this will make it. All I'm saying, it might have been negligible up till now. I don't think that it will be negligible in the future.
Well, I'm just going to say, our use of the road has been negligible because we very rarely come to the site. So during the construction of this solar facility, there will be a period when, as the planning application shows very clearly, there will be a period where there will be construction traffic coming up and down Coach Road, and it will have an impact on the surface of the road, and the damage will be repaired. Beyond that, once the thing is built and operational, our use of the roadway will be quite similar to what it is now, quite negligible. Maybe 2 maintenance visits a year, Dave, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
there's no evidence to suggest that this development would cause more deterioration of the road than already exists, I don't think. I mean, compared with emergency vehicles, refuse wagons, delivery vehicles, all those sorts of things, which are all to do with the houses, nothing to do with this site. All that usage is much more intense than anything we would be doing on the road. And that's why in the past we've taken the view that prospects shouldn't be required to contribute anything to the maintenance of the road because we don't use it. The usage is
that's
by the
fine, but you
house.
will
The
put-
usage
but
is by the houses.
as long as you're guaranteeing that the road will be put back to, I would say, a better state of repair than it was before you start.
Well, I can give an undertaking now that it will be part of the contract to make good any damage to the road.
Okay.
It'll be part of the contract.
It's also very likely to be part of the planning condition.
Yes, indeed. There will be a thing called a construction management plan required.
Yeah.
Which controls all the operations to do with the construction of the site, the hours of operation, noise emissions, mud on the road, all those sorts of things will be controlled through a construction management plan. And we will make good the damage.
Okay.
Any further questions? There is still a hand up here. I'm not sure who it is.
Neil's got his hand up.
I can't get it to go off.
You can't make it go off, right?
No.
Okay.
There's normally if you've got your hand up, there's normally a button which says lower hand. But anyway, we can ignore that. That's. Are there any other questions?
Okay. So thanks everybody for attending. It's been very instructive to me anyway to hear people's comments, and we will take all the points on board seriously, especially the point about a face-to-face meeting with the Hill Street residents. I think we could probably organise that.
I do feel disappointed, Phil, that hasn't happened before you've actually gone to planning. I feel quite cynical about the fact that, we're only having this meeting now, 2 years later, when, you're going to planning and you're hopeful that you're going to get that planning. And I feel like the little people here on this street just don't matter. It's so disappointing.
That's not true, is it?
Really disappointing.
You rent land from us, don't you?
I feel just disappointing. You'd have had more people's support if you'd have perhaps involved us a little bit sooner, like you did with the plan for the environmental.
There is a very good reason for that. There is a very good reason for that. Well, 2 very good reasons. One is it's taken much longer to get to this stage of having some proposals, some proper drawn up proposals to talk about. It's taken much longer than I expected. I would never have thought originally that it would take us 2 years to get to this point. But here we are, and we are at this point. And consultation is very difficult if there isn't something concrete to talk about. Now that we've got drawn up plans that people can look at, if we'd come to you and said, we have this proposal, you'd have said to us, well, show us what it is. And we wouldn't have been.
Well, you could have shown us the proposal before you went to planning, and then there could have been some kind of assurances given to the residents. And I just feel you should all really be ashamed of yourselves for approaching it this way. It's just really disappointing.
Well, no, what I would say is it's not cast in stone.
There's no time now, though, is there? There's no time. The time's running out for us to get objections in. And really, these meetings should have happened before then. And you'd have had more people's support, and people wouldn't be feeling upset and, steamrolled. I just think it's really disappointing and quite stressful as well. It's quite stressful.
Well, I apologise if it's stressful. That's definitely not the intention. We do want to work with the local residents. We don't want to be in, you know, in opposition to each other. But I would ask that you also take account of the value of what we're doing, because the whole idea of this development is to have a contribution to climate change solutions. It's a really vital issue at the moment. And we happen to own this asset where we can actually do something positive. And we'd like people in the vicinity to share in that vision. You know, so we will meet again. You know, we'll have a further meeting with the Hill Street residents. I would hope also that the Hill Street residents could be in the ongoing, you know, the future of the site, the ongoing management of the site, things that we've been talking about, the habitat management, etc. That would be really good if we could form a group for the running of the site involving
Well, I have suggestions for that
people in
already.
the vicinity.
I have a suggestion for that already, which when we had the face-to-face meeting, right, and actually up at Hill Street, right, then things can actually be pointed out by yourselves that you don't want to say to us, and by what the residents want to be able to say to you, like we can actually show you on site.
Okay.
But really, this meeting needs to be done like in the next couple of weeks. But the vast majority of the people on Hill Street work during the week, so it'd have to be like a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So ideally, either this Saturday or next Saturday, because we've only got a few weeks, so as to be able to put any objections in.
There is an official period in which your representations to the council are definitely taken into account, but it is normal for late representations to be considered. And what I would advise,
considered,
right? Yeah, no, I would. Sorry, Neil, can I finish? What I would advise you to do if you have concerns is get something into the council now as a sort of place marker, if you like, and say, you know, that we want more time to consider this and we will be sending more considered comments in later. And it's almost certain that the council will take those comments into account if they are considered relevant in planning terms, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, right? But we had a face-to-face meeting, right, with prospects, like for instance this Saturday, right? Most of those concerns could be laid to rest and sorted, right? Because like I've said, and Caroline said, and Odette said, and Angie said, right, we're not against the solar farm, right? Yes, it's a good idea, and that lot, right? It's just the things that surround the ongoing for it.
Okay.
Okay.
And that lot. So and the longer that this takes in that lot, so to be able to, right, then there's obviously going to be a lot more concerns that goes into the council against it. But if there's hardly any concerns that goes to the council, right, then that's better for everyone. Because I believe that if we could sort everything out face to face and that lot, right, things happen a lot better than on bits of paper being sent in and all that lot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what we can do. But I would say I would take Dave's advice seriously. There is a deadline in the consultation letter, I'm sure. A deadline.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Just let me finish. Let me finish, Neil. It would be very surprising for a decision to be made by that or shortly after that date. These days, planning applications of this kind, which are, you know, quite big sites, quite complex proposals, take a lot longer to determine and to get a decision on. It's very unlikely that the application will be determined on or shortly after that date. So I wouldn't feel panicky about getting it in by then, but equally, if you need to put a marker down, get your letter in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's 13 weeks, I think, but it will be autumn when a decision's made.
Yeah.
Late summer, autumn. So long way to go.
Yeah.
Well, it is and it isn't, but the letter from the council said 3 weeks from the date of this letter.
Yes, that's what it says. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, right, like a week and a half of that's gone already.
But you can easily drop an email and ask regarding the progress of the application and when it's likely to be determined, and you'll get a reply.
3 weeks from the date of the letter is actually the 24th of May.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're on the 18th.
Which is 6 days away.
But I'm aware of planning applications in the last couple of years which have taken a whole year to determine.
But
I'm not saying that will be.
It's not how long it takes. It's from our point of view. We wanted to have these discussions before. You know, we've got, like I said, we've got 6 days now. You know, it would have been a lot better had we had prior knowledge. I'm with all my neighbours on this. We feel very let down and disappointed that we weren't even brought into the ideas of it.
The views that you submit after that date will definitely be taken into account. I'm quite confident of that.
Like, you could have contacted us at any stage, the residents on the street, and said, look, can we have a meeting in like 6 weeks time or whatever, right? Because we want to discuss something with you and that lot, right? We don't need to see plans all the time, right? We can stand out on the front, right? And you can walk us through it. And that and say, right, this is what we're proposing for here, this is what we're proposing for there and that lot, right? What's your ideas on it? Right, and work hand in hand with the residents all the way through it, right? And then when the application goes in, it's just going to sell through because everyone's worked hand in hand on it. So effectively, it's been like a joint operation between yourselves and the residents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, because the things that we've said tonight that you lot have said, yeah, we can seriously think about that and possibly take it on board and that lot as well. Right, so.
Okay.
You keep telling us that this is for the community, you know, and we obviously feel that it's for the greater community. We get that. We understand all about the carbon offsetting and so on, and 100% we agree with that. However, it doesn't benefit the local community the way that you're expressing it at the moment. And to say that you think you will bring value to the local community at the moment I don't think has been sufficiently proved to us, who are very much the local community. That's why we're feeling so aggrieved about the way this is happening, and I still don't see the benefit to us as locals. All I can see is that we're looking at something that I think will affect the property of our value of our houses. It also affects, I know we don't have a right to review or anything like that, and I'm not insisting on one. However, there are reasons that the people that live here. We love this place. We're a very small community, and the whole reason that I moved here was because of the field in front of me and everything else around this little community, being an isolated little community. And it breaks my heart to think that, you know, you're taking some of that future away from us. And that's how it feels. I'm sorry, but it does. You know, yes, great that we're offsetting so much carbon, you know, offsetting so much carbon emissions and so on. But that affects the whole of the country in general. It doesn't affect us. All that I can see is that quite honestly, we don't have a lot of benefit from it in real terms in front of us. All I look is that my house is going to lose value, and that, you know.
Well, I don't think it will. I mean, that's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a matter of opinion, but I think your opinion would be different if you actually sat where we're sat, and that's the truth of it. Anyway, I'll keep quiet now.
Any more questions? So we will see if we can arrange a meeting for the residents in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody. We'll draw the meeting to a close, and we'll be in touch.
Okay.